I think something that we see is that a lot of investors, developers are setting targets for maybe 2030, 2040 and beyond. And if these things are not considered in the due diligence process, then you have no way of knowing if you're going to meet those targets or not. So we always say once you're setting those long-term goals, to really incorporate that back into your due diligence process as well. So for example, if you want to be carbon neutral by 2030, are you looking at your carbon impact and your carbon footprint at acquisition as well? Yeah, so I'd say in the certification world, we've definitely seen an increase in BREEAM certifications in the last couple of years, where it used to be maybe a nice to have. It's really quite become a standard in development specifications or renovation specs. But what we've seen is kind of where that's become a standard. If someone wants to set their building apart from that, they might look at a health and well-being certification like WELL or FitWell. And the other thing that we've seen really grow in popularity is also the NEIGHBOR certification. So coming over to the UK from Australia, the NEIGHBOR certification looks at actual energy use compared to a theoretical measure of energy use. And as people are kind of sharpening their understanding of energy and decarbonization, we've really seen growth in NEIGHBORs as well. Yeah, so the lean, clean, green process is the energy hierarchy that we would use when we are evaluating a building for a decarbonization pathway. And what that really means is kind of looking from the outside in, because if we don't look at the building envelope, then of course as we start to make changes on the inside, like removing gas and making the M&E systems more efficient, the heat and the energy can be lost through the shell. So we really want to make sure that we start from the outside and move in. So lean is looking at the building fabric and the exterior of the building. Clean is looking inside, so looking at the M&E kit, so things like heating and cooling, lighting, and the domestic hot water systems. And then green is the last step, and that's kind of supplementing anything that we haven't reduced already with producing energy, so maybe things like PV or wind or any sort of renewable generation that we can add to the site. Yeah, the logistics sector has been interesting because I think a lot of people think, at first look, oh, just a logistics building, maybe not that complicated and not that interesting in terms of ESG measures. But actually, we've seen a huge growth in ESG focus for the logistics sector. I think one, because there's a lot to be won there. So there's plenty of kind of quick wins in terms of changing the lighting to highly efficient LEDs with motion sensors and daylight sensors. So that's something I would say every logistics center should probably be doing. But there's also a huge opportunity for things like PV, those large roof spaces, you can generate a lot of energy as well. And in these buildings that may or may not be using a lot of energy, there's people working as well. So we start to look at things like health and well-being aspects. Do they have a good office space? Do they have good breakout spaces? Are those office spaces that might be sort of secondary to the wider use of the building also being considered from an ESG perspective?